Welcome back. 20 more questions for you today, themed around AWS Artifact, Network ACLs, and Savings Plan flexibility. 10 seconds per question on the timer. Pause when you need to. Let's see how the patterns land this round. Let us keep moving. Question 1. The setup controls the answer. Wide World Importers is building a product catalog for a global e-commerce marketplace. Each product category has different attributes. Electronics require voltage specs and warranty terms, clothing requires size and fabric, food requires nutritional information and expiration dates. The catalog must return results with single-digit millisecond latency and automatically scale to handle unpredictable traffic spikes during flash sales without manual capacity planning. Which AWS database service best meets these requirements? Select one. Review the answer choices on screen. The correct answer is option C. DynamoDB's schema-less design handles varying product attributes at scale. Amazon DynamoDB with on-demand capacity mode is purpose-built for this scenario. DynamoDB delivers consistent single-digit millisecond read and write latency at any scale, and its schema-less key-value design accommodates varying product attributes across categories without requiring schema migrations. On-demand capacity automatically scales to serve millions of requests per second during flash sales without capacity planning or manual intervention, then scales back down without charges for idle capacity. Amazon RDS for MySQL and Amazon Aurora PostgreSQL are relational databases with defined schemas, making them poorly suited for products with heterogeneous attribute sets across categories. Adding read replicas improves read throughput, but does not provide true serverless auto-scaling for sudden, unpredictable traffic spikes. Amazon Elastic Cache for Redis is a caching layer designed to reduce load on a primary database rather than serve as a standalone database solution. It does not persist data durably and requires a back-end relational database, adding architectural complexity without resolving the schema flexibility or auto-scaling requirements. Time for another one. Question 2. Watch the exact wording. Northwind Commerce is selecting an AWS support plan. Their requirements include 24/7 access to cloud support engineers via phone and chat, a guaranteed human engagement time of less than 30 minutes when production systems are completely down, access to all AWS Trusted Advisor checks, and no requirement for a dedicated technical account manager. They want to minimize monthly cost while satisfying every requirement. Which support plan should they choose? Select one. Review the answer choices on screen. The correct answer is option A. The trap is reaching for enterprise when TAM is excluded. Business Support Plus is the minimum plan that satisfies all stated requirements. It provides 24/7 phone, web, and chat access to cloud support engineers, a guaranteed human engagement time of less than 30 minutes for business-critical system down cases, access to more than 500 AWS Trusted Advisor checks, and real-time AI-powered contextual assistance. A dedicated technical account manager is not included in Business Support Plus, which aligns with the stated requirement to exclude that capability. Basic support covers only account, billing, and service quota questions and does not provide access to cloud support engineers or any technical support response time guarantee. Developer support provides business hours email access to cloud support associates, but does not include 24/7 phone access or the critical case response time guarantees required. Enterprise support includes all Business Support Plus features and adds a designated technical account manager and up to 15-minute response times for production-critical cases, making it more expensive than necessary for these requirements. Let us keep moving. Question 3, coming up. Conteso e-commerce is building an order processing system. When a customer places an order, 3 independent downstream services must each receive and process the order event at their own pace. An inventory service must reserve stock, a shipping service must schedule fulfillment, and a notification service must send a confirmation email. Each service requires its own independent copy of every order event. Which AWS service should the architect use to deliver the order event to all three services simultaneously? Select one. Review the answer choices on screen. The correct answer is option C. One SNS published delivers an independent copy to every subscriber. Amazon SNS is a fully managed publish-subscribe messaging service that fans out a single published message simultaneously to all subscribed endpoints. By creating one SNS topic and subscribing each of the three downstream services to it, every order event published to the topic is delivered as an independent copy to the inventory, shipping, and notification services at the same time, allowing each to process independently. Amazon SQS with a standard queue delivers each message to exactly one consumer, whichever service polls and retrieves the message first receives it, and the message is removed from the queue, preventing the other two services from receiving it. For true fan-out to multiple SQS consumers, you would need an SNS to SQS fan-out pattern with separate queues per service. Amazon Event Bridge routes events to targets based on pattern matching rules, and is powerful for event-driven architectures with complex routing logic, but requires explicit rule configuration per target, and adds unnecessary complexity for a straightforward fan-out requirement. AWS Step Functions orchestrates workflow steps in sequence or parallel, and is designed for coordinating a defined process, not for broadcasting independent event copies to unrelated downstream consumers. Ready? Let's look at question 4. Quick check. Northwind Logistics is in the early stages of planning a migration to AWS. During an AWS Cloud Adoption Framework assessment, the team identifies 3 organizational challenges. Employees lack cloud skills. The IT department is structured in traditional infrastructure silos that resist change, and middle management is concerned about role changes during the transformation. Which CAF perspective directly addresses these challenges? Select one. Review the answer choices on screen. The correct answer is option B. Skills gaps plus change resistance equals people perspective every time. The people perspective of the AWS Cloud Adoption Framework addresses the human and organizational dimensions of cloud adoption. It specifically covers culture evolution, cloud skills development, organizational structure changes, leadership engagement, and managing resistance to change during transformation. The challenges described, skills gaps, siloed team structures, and change resistance, are all squarely within the people perspective, which is typically owned by HR leaders, training managers, and people operations stakeholders. The governance perspective focuses on aligning IT investments with business strategy through audit, compliance, risk management, and portfolio management. The operations perspective addresses how IT services are delivered, including incident management, event management, and infrastructure operations day-to-day. The platform perspective covers technical architecture patterns, application modernization approaches, infrastructure design, and data architecture decisions. Ready? Question 5. Watch the almost right choices. Prosware Incorporated runs a steady production workload on Amazon EC2 that includes both Linux and Windows instances spanning the M5 and C5 instance families in various sizes. The team commits to a 1-year term with consistent compute usage and needs significant cost savings, while retaining the flexibility to shift workloads between instance families and operating systems as needs evolve. Which 2 EC2 pricing options provide committed term discounts while supporting flexibility across instance families and operating systems? Select 2. Review the answer choices on screen. The correct answers are option B and option D. Instance savings plans look flexible but are locked to one family. Compute savings plans deliver up to 66% savings compared to on-demand pricing and automatically apply to any EC2 instance usage, regardless of instance family, size, availability zone, operating system, or tenancy within a commitment to a specified hourly spend. Teams shifting workloads between the M5 and C5 families with mixed operating systems benefit directly because the discount is tied to the hourly spend commitment, not to a specific instance configuration. Convertible reserved instances can be exchanged during the term for a different instance family, operating system, tenancy, or payment option, providing the cross-family flexibility required. The exchange must result in an equal or greater value reservation, and the discount is up to 54% compared to on-demand pricing. EC2 instance savings plans are scoped to a specific instance family within a single AWS region and cover all sizes and operating systems within that family. Usage shifted from the M5 to the C5 family receives no discount from an M5 scoped plan, making cross-family migrations reduce the effective savings rate. Standard reserved instances provide instance size flexibility within a single instance family for Amazon Linux with default tenancy, but that discount does not extend across different instance families. Purchasing separate standard reserved instances for both the M5 and C5 families limits flexibility and leaves cross-family migrations without coverage. Spot instances can reduce costs by up to 90% compared to on-demand pricing, but are subject to a 2-minute interruption notice when AWS reclaims capacity. Steady production workloads requiring uninterrupted availability cannot tolerate this interruption model regardless of the cost-benefit. This question packs 5 pricing options. Let's sort out which ones actually give you cross-family flexibility. Imagine running M5 database servers and C5 web servers. Your team will shift between them during the year. Which pricing model keeps you discounted across both? Compute savings plans commit to an hourly spend, say 50 cents per hour. The discount follows you anywhere. Any family, any OS, any size. Convertible reserved instances let you exchange your reservation midterm for a different family or OS. Both give cross-family freedom. The trap: EC2 instance savings plans are locked to one family. Buy an M5 plan, shift to C5, and that C5 usage gets zero discount. Standard reserved instances have the same problem. Spot instances can vanish with 2 minutes notice, not safe for production. Cross-family flexibility is the key. B&D win. DynamoDB owns schema-free auto-scaling for unpredictable traffic. SNS fans out to every subscriber simultaneously, while SQS serves only one. Business support is the minimum plan for 24/7 phone access and a sub-30-minute critical response SLA. Let us switch gears. Question 6 is up. Quick check. Northwind Healthcare is preparing for a third-party security audit. Their compliance officer needs to provide auditors with official documentation confirming that AWS infrastructure complies with HIPAA and SOC 2 requirements. Where should the compliance officer obtain this documentation? Select one. Review the answer choices on screen. The correct answer is option D. Official AWS audit reports live in exactly one portal. AWS Artifact is the self-service portal for on-demand access to AWS compliance documentation, including audit reports, certifications, and attestations such as SOC 2 reports, PCI DSS attestations, HIPAA eligibility documentation, and ISO certifications. Compliance officers download these documents directly to share with auditors. AWS Security Hub aggregates security findings and tracks compliance posture within a customer's own AWS environment, but does not provide AWS infrastructure compliance attestation documents. AWS Trusted Advisor gives operational recommendations based on AWS best practices rather than formal compliance reports. AWS Config evaluates whether the customer's own resource configurations match defined rules, and does not provide AWS infrastructure compliance certifications. Let us switch gears. Question 7. Separate fact from assumption. Litware Incorporated operates a video platform where raw files are uploaded to an Amazon S3 bucket in US East 1. EU data residency regulations require that a copy of all content associated with European customers be stored in an S3 bucket in EU West 1 automatically and in near real time. The team wants a solution with minimal operational overhead once it is configured. Which S3 feature meets these requirements? Select one. Review the answer choices on screen. The correct answer is option D. Near real-time plus minimal ongoing overhead points only to CRR. S3 cross-region replication automatically replicates new and updated objects from a source bucket in one AWS region to a destination bucket in a different region in near real time. Once configured with a replication rule, an IAM replication role, and S3 versioning enabled on both buckets, the process runs continuously and automatically with no ongoing operational intervention. S3 transfer acceleration improves upload throughput to a single bucket by routing client traffic through CloudFront edge locations. It does not replicate objects between regions. S3 batch operations processes large batches of existing S3 objects in bulk and can perform copy operations, but it requires scheduling and does not provide continuous near real-time replication of new uploads as they arrive. Amazon Data Sync is designed for data movement between on-premises file systems and AWS storage services, not for automatic S3 to S3 cross-region replication of ongoing uploads. Keep your focus here. Question 8. One detail changes the answer. A developer at a startup is using the AWS Basic Support Plan and wants to leverage AWS Trusted Advisor to identify both cost savings opportunities and security risks in their account before deciding whether to upgrade their support plan. Which Trusted Advisor capabilities are accessible under the Basic Support Plan? Select one. Review the answer choices on screen. The correct answer is option B. Most cost checks require business support, not basic or developer. The AWS Basic Support Plan and Developer Support Plan include access to a limited set of foundational Trusted Advisor checks. The available security checks include MFA on root account, security groups with unrestricted inbound access on high-risk ports, Amazon S3 bucket permissions, IAM use, Amazon EBS public snapshots, and Amazon RDS public snapshots. Service quota checks that alert users when usage is approaching account-level resource limits are also included. Cost optimization checks, including identification of idle EC2 instances, underutilized EBS volumes, unused elastic IP addresses, and low utilization reserved instances, require business support or enterprise support to access. Performance efficiency checks and fault tolerance checks, such as multi-as recommendations for RDS and CloudFront header optimization, similarly require a paid business or enterprise support tier. Upgrading to business support or enterprise support unlocks the full suite of Trusted Advisor checks across all 5 categories and provides programmatic access to results via the AWS Support API. Let's break down exactly what Trusted Advisor gives you free and what stays locked. Imagine your AWS account is a car dashboard. Trusted Advisor is the warning light system. On the basic plan, only a few lights work. You get a core set of free security checks. For example, is MFA on your root account? Are your S3 buckets accidentally public? You also get service quota alerts when you're near limits. But cost optimization checks? Locked. Performance and fault tolerance? Also locked. To spot that idle EC2 instance burning $200 a month, you need business support. Basic gives you security and quota warnings only. That's the trap. Keep your focus here. Question 9. Wording first, memory second. Cloud's on-premises financial systems must continuously transfer large volumes of sensitive trading data to AWS. The company's security policy explicitly prohibits any data transit over the public internet, and the network team requires predictable, consistent throughput for the connection. Which AWS connectivity option satisfies both requirements? Select one. Review the answer choices on screen. The correct answer is option B. No public internet transit rules out VPN immediately. AWS Direct Connect establishes a dedicated private network connection between an on-premises facility or colocation environment and AWS that completely bypasses the public internet. It delivers consistent, predictable bandwidth and latency suitable for continuous high-volume financial data transfer in security-sensitive environments where public internet exposure is prohibited. AWS site-to-site VPN creates encrypted IPsec tunnels, but all traffic still traverses public internet infrastructure. Regardless of the encryption strength, this path violates the policy against public internet transit. Amazon CloudFront is a content delivery network designed to cache and distribute content closer to end users. It does not provide a private data center to cloud network path for bulk operational data transfer. AWS Transit Gateway with a VPN attachment connects VPCs and on-premises networks, but the VPN transport still routes over the public internet, failing the same requirement as site-to-site VPN. Alright, let's go to question 10. Quick check. Northwind Traders is planning a large-scale migration to AWS. Their HR leadership is concerned about how the transition will affect existing employee roles, workflows, and company culture. They need guidance on developing training programs and managing organizational change throughout the migration. Which AWS Cloud Adoption Framework perspective addresses these concerns? Select one. Review the answer choices on screen. The correct answer is option A. HR plus training programs maps to people perspective every time. The people perspective of the AWS Cloud Adoption Framework focuses on the human side of cloud adoption, including organizational culture, workforce transformation, resource management, leadership alignment, and training and skills development. It specifically addresses organizational change management, the process of guiding employees through changes in roles, workflows, and culture during a cloud transition. The business perspective focuses on financial justification, portfolio management, and demonstrating business value from cloud investments. The governance perspective covers audit and compliance processes, portfolio governance, and business process governance. The operations perspective addresses IT service delivery, infrastructure management, and incident management after the cloud environment is operational. Artifact is the one-stop portal for compliance docs and legal agreements. Direct Connect is the only connectivity path that never traverses the public internet. Trusted Advisor cost checks are locked behind business support. Basic gives you security and quota checks only. Alright, let's get into question 11. Cloud's compliance officer needs to provide external auditors with AWS's most recent SOC 2 Type 2 report and ISO 27001 certification before a scheduled audit. Additionally, before Cloud begins processing protected health information in AWS, the compliance officer must formally accept the AWS HIPAA Business Associate Addendum on behalf of the company. Which AWS service provides on-demand access to both AWS compliance reports and legal agreements? Select one. Review the answer choices on screen. The correct answer is option B. Reports tab for certs, Agreements tab for the HIPAA bar. AWS Artifact is a self-service portal that provides on-demand access to AWS compliance documentation and legal agreements. In the Reports section, customers can download security and compliance documents including SOC 1, SOC 2, and SOC 3 reports, ISO 27001, ISO 27017, and ISO 27018 certifications, PCI DSS attestations of compliance, FedRAMP authorizations, and dozens of other third-party audit artifacts. In the Agreements section, customers can review and accept legal agreements such as the HIPAA Business Associate Addendum and the GDPR Data Processing Addendum, which must be formally accepted before processing regulated data in AWS. AWS Security Hub is a cloud security posture management service that aggregates and correlates findings from security tools like Amazon Guard Duty and Amazon Inspector. It does not host AWS compliance certifications or legal agreements. AWS Trusted Advisor provides best practice recommendations across cost optimization, security, performance, and fault tolerance by analyzing the customer's AWS environment. It does not provide downloadable compliance documentation or legal agreement management. AWS Config continuously records resource configuration history and evaluates resources against compliance rules. It tracks whether customer resources meet defined standards, but does not provide AWS's own compliance certifications or regulatory legal agreements. Okay. Question 12. The verb matters here. A retail website built on Amazon EC2 experiences traffic that increases 8x during holiday shopping events and returns to normal levels afterward. The infrastructure team configured EC2 auto-scaling with a minimum capacity of 2 instances and a maximum of 20 instances. The group automatically provisions additional instances when average CPU utilization exceeds 70%, and terminates excess instances when CPU drops below 30%. Which cloud characteristic does this architecture primarily demonstrate? Select one. Review the answer choices on screen. The correct answer is option A. Provisions more and terminates excess. Bidirectional is the keyword. Elasticity is the cloud characteristic that describes automatic, bidirectional scaling of resources in response to demand, provisioning more capacity when traffic increases and releasing it when traffic subsides. The described auto-scaling configuration demonstrates elasticity precisely. It adds EC2 instances during holiday traffic spikes and removes them when demand returns to baseline, ensuring the organization pays only for capacity it actually needs at any given moment. Fault tolerance describes a system's ability to continue functioning without any service disruption despite the failure of individual components, typically achieved through active-active redundancy that masks failures entirely, a higher and more expensive standard than high availability, and not specifically about scaling behavior. High availability means a system minimizes downtime and remains accessible through redundant deployments, often across multiple availability zones, but focuses on uptime continuity rather than the dynamic capacity adjustment behavior described in the scenario. Durability is a storage concept describing the probability that stored data will remain intact and uncorrupted over time. Amazon S3's 11 nines of durability is the canonical example, and has no relationship to compute scaling behavior. Let's unpack the qualifier here. The word primarily is what makes this question tricky. Imagine a store that rents shelf space during Black Friday, then hands it all back when the rush ends. That's elasticity. The trap here? High availability sounds plausible when you see multiple instances running. So does fault tolerance, but they describe different things. High availability is about staying up across zones. Fault tolerance is about surviving a server crash. Neither one scales you back down. The question gives you a big hint. Traffic goes 8x up and returns to normal. Both directions matter. Elasticity is the only cloud property that covers scale out and scale in. The word primarily forces you to pick the closest match, and that's elasticity, not resilience. Okay, question 13 is up. Woodgrove Bank operates 14 separate AWS accounts across its business divisions and currently receives 14 separate monthly invoices. The finance team also misses volume-based pricing discounts because usage is fragmented. Which AWS capability should the bank implement to consolidate all invoices into a single bill and qualify for aggregate volume pricing? Select one. Review the answer choices on screen. The correct answer is option C. Single invoice plus aggregate volume discounts requires AWS Organizations. Consolidated billing through AWS Organizations designates one management account, also called a payer account, to receive a single invoice covering all member accounts in the organization. Beyond invoice consolidation, it aggregates usage from every member account when calculating volume pricing tiers for services such as Amazon S3 and data transfer. The entire organization benefits from the same volume discounts, as if all accounts were a single high-usage customer, which reduces per-unit costs that fragmented accounts would never reach individually. AWS Cost Explorer provides visibility into historical and forecasted spending across accounts and can display aggregated views, but it does not merge billing or unlock volume pricing discounts. AWS Pricing Calculator estimates costs for planned configurations before deployment and performs no billing consolidation function. AWS Budget sets cost and usage thresholds and sends alerts when they are exceeded, but it does not combine invoices or aggregate pricing tiers across accounts. Here we go. Question 14. Watch for the hidden requirement. A network security architect at Tailspin Media is designing a defense in-depth strategy for a multi-tier web application in a VPC. The application receives HTTPS traffic and communicates with the database tier on port 5432. The architect must add a network-level control that explicitly blocks known malicious IP addresses across all resources in a subnet, independent of the security groups attached to individual instances. Which VPC component should the architect configure? Select one. Review the answer choices on screen. The correct answer is option A. Security groups cannot explicitly deny by IP, only NACLs can. Network access control lists are subnet-level firewall rules that are stateless and support explicit DNI rules. A single NACL can block specific IP addresses across all resources in a subnet, without touching individual instance security groups. Security groups are stateful and do not support explicit deny rules. They can only allow or implicitly deny traffic, so blocking a specific IP is not possible with a security group alone. AWS WAF operates at the application layer for HTTP/HTTPS traffic and is not a general VPC-level control for blocking arbitrary IPs at the network layer across all protocols. VPC endpoint policies control access to AWS services through VPC endpoints and are not designed for blocking malicious external IP addresses. This one has a classic distractor. Let's break down which VPC control actually blocks IPs. Imagine your app is getting hammered by 50 known malicious IPs. You want to slam the door on all of them at the subnet level, before they touch anything. The first instinct: use a security group. But here's the trap: security groups only allow traffic. They can't explicitly deny a specific IP. Network ACLs, or NACLs, work differently. They sit at the subnet level and support explicit deny rules. One NACL covers every instance in that subnet automatically. AWS WAF, the Web Application Firewall, blocks web traffic at the app layer only, not a general subnet level control. When the question says subnet level and explicit deny, always reach for the NACL. Next up, question 15. Picture the scenario first. Contasso Limited operates a remote geological survey station with a 500 megabits per second internet connection. The station has accumulated 60 terabytes of seismic sensor data that must be migrated to Amazon S3 as quickly as possible. The networking team estimates that transferring the full dataset over the existing internet connection would take approximately 10 days. Which AWS service should they use to complete this migration most efficiently? Select one. Review the answer choices on screen. The correct answer is option B. 10 days over the wire means ship the device instead. AWS Snowball Edge Storage Optimized is the appropriate service when network transfer of the required data volume would take more than 1 week. AWS's general guidance is that physical data transfer appliances become more practical than network transfer when the estimated transfer time exceeds approximately 7 days. Snowball Edge devices hold up to 80 terabytes of usable storage, accommodate the full 60 terabytes dataset in a single device, and allow data to be loaded locally at high speeds without consuming internet bandwidth. Once loaded, the device is shipped directly to an AWS facility where data is ingested into Amazon S3. AWS Data Sync accelerates and automates data transfers between on-premises storage and AWS, but it transfers data over the existing network connection. Data Sync cannot overcome the physical bandwidth limitation of a 500 megabits per second link for 60 terabytes of data. The estimated transfer time remains approximately 10 days regardless of data sync optimization. AWS Direct Connect establishes a dedicated private network link between an on-premises location and AWS, bypassing the public internet. However, provisioning a Direct Connect circuit requires weeks to months of lead time for physical cross-connect installation and circuit delivery. Direct Connect would not accelerate this immediate migration requirement. AWS Snowmobile is a purpose-built ruggedized shipping container capable of holding up to 100 petabytes. It is designed for exabyte-scale data center migrations. Using Snowmobile for a 60 terabytes transfer would dramatically exceed the needed capacity and cost, making it an impractical choice for this scenario. NACLs are the only subnet control with explicit deny rules and they're stateless. Elasticity means bidirectional autoscaling, not just staying online. Snowball Edge wins when a network transfer estimate exceeds 1 week. Next up, question 16. Coming up, quick check. A financial services company receives thousands of scanned paper loan applications every day. Each form contains a mix of printed text, handwritten fields, tables, and checkboxes. The company wants to automatically extract all structured data from these forms without building custom image processing logic. Which AWS AI service is specifically designed to extract text, tables, and form data from scanned documents? Select one. Review the answer choices on screen. The correct answer is option D. Tables, handwriting, and key-value pairs need Textract specifically. Amazon Textract is a machine learning service that goes beyond basic optical character recognition to automatically extract printed text, handwriting, tables, and form key-value pairs from scanned documents and images. It understands the structure of a document, identifying fields, their values, and their relationships, making it purpose-built for processing loan applications and other structured forms. Amazon Recognition is designed for image and video analysis tasks such as facial recognition, object detection, scene labeling, and content moderation. It does not extract structured form data from documents. Amazon Comprehend is a natural language processing service that analyzes clean text input to detect sentiment, named entities, key phrases, and language. It requires extracted text as input and cannot process scanned document images directly. Amazon Transcribe converts spoken audio into text and is not applicable to scanned paper documents. Now, let's read question 17. Proseware's security team wants to automatically detect threats across their AWS environment, including compromised EC2 instances, sending traffic to known malicious IP addresses, unusual API calls originating from unexpected geographic locations, and cryptocurrency mining activity on their compute resources. The solution must require no agents to install, no infrastructure to manage, and must analyze multiple AWS data sources continuously. Which AWS service should they enable? Select one. Review the answer choices on screen. The correct answer is option C. GuardDuty ingests CloudTrail, VPC flow logs, and DNS logs automatically. Amazon GuardDuty is a fully managed continuous threat detection service that automatically analyzes AWS CloudTrail management events, CloudTrail S3 data events, VPC flow logs, and DNS query logs to surface malicious activity and unauthorized behavior. It uses machine learning models and threat intelligence feeds to identify specific threats like EC2 instances communicating with known command and control servers, API calls from Tor exit nodes or unusual geographies, and patterns consistent with cryptocurrency mining. GuardDuty requires no agents, no sensors, and no infrastructure changes. It is enabled with a single click and immediately begins analyzing log streams. AWS Security Hub is a cloud security posture management service that aggregates, normalizes, and correlates findings from multiple security services including GuardDuty, but Security Hub does not itself perform the underlying threat detection. Amazon Inspector performs automated vulnerability assessments against EC2 instances and container images, evaluating software vulnerabilities and unintended network exposure. It analyzes configuration and software inventory, not behavioral threat detection of live traffic. Amazon Detective is a forensic investigation and visualization service that helps security teams analyze the root cause of findings after they have been detected by GuardDuty or other services. It investigates threats, but does not detect them. Now, question 18. Map the qualifier to the answer. Litware Financial is architecting their Amazon VPC. A network security engineer must implement traffic filtering at the subnet boundary, where both inbound and outbound traffic must be explicitly permitted, including return traffic for all connections. The engineer specifies the controls must be stateless. Which AWS networking feature is stateless and operates at the subnet level? Select one. Review the answer choices on screen. The correct answer is option C. Stateless plus subnet boundary equals NACL, not security group. Network access control lists, NACLs, are stateless packet filtering rules that operate at the subnet boundary within an Amazon VPC. Because NACLs are stateless, they evaluate every packet independently without tracking connection state. Both inbound and outbound rules must explicitly allow each direction of traffic, including return traffic for established connections. A custom NACL denies all traffic by default. Security groups are stateful, meaning that if inbound traffic is permitted, the corresponding outbound return traffic is automatically allowed without a separate rule. AWS WAF operates at the application layer to filter HTTP and HTTPS requests against web exploit patterns, such as SQL injection and cross-site scripting. It does not perform subnet-level packet filtering. AWS Network Firewall is a managed stateful firewall service that provides deeper inspection capabilities than NACLs, but does not operate as a stateless subnet boundary filter in the same way. Now, question 19 is next. A startup CFO reviewing AWS invoices notices that the cost per gigabyte of Amazon S3 storage has decreased each year, even though the company's own storage usage has remained flat. Which fundamental characteristic of cloud computing explains why AWS is able to continuously reduce per unit pricing over time? Select one. Review the answer choices on screen. The correct answer is option C. AWS passes its bulk purchasing efficiency savings down to customers. Economies of scale explain why AWS can lower per-unit pricing over time. AWS serves hundreds of thousands of customers globally, which allows it to negotiate lower component prices, operate data centers at higher efficiency, spread fixed infrastructure costs across an enormous demand base, and achieve unit economics that no individual organization could replicate. As AWS grows and its operational efficiency improves, it passes these aggregate savings to customers through periodic price reductions. Elasticity is a customer-side capability, the ability for a workload to automatically scale capacity up or down based on demand. It does not drive AWS's ability to lower prices for all customers. The variable cost model describes how cloud converts upfront capital expenditures into ongoing operational expenditures, which is a financial benefit for customers, but is not the mechanism that enables AWS to reduce per-unit pricing year over year. The AWS free tier provides limited complementary usage of specific services for new accounts and certain perpetual free tiers, but it does not lower prices platform-wide and is not responsible for the year-over-year pricing reduction the CFO is observing. Let us keep moving. Question 20. Pick the complete answer. Prosware runs a customer-facing web application deployed in both US East 1 and EU Central 1. Under normal operations, all traffic must route exclusively to the US East 1 deployment. If US East 1 becomes unhealthy, as determined by an endpoint health check, all traffic must automatically route to EU Central 1 with no manual intervention. Which Amazon Route 53 routing policy implements this active-passive failover design? Select one. Review the answer choices on screen. The correct answer is option C. Zero-wait records never activate. Failover routing is the only answer. Route 53 failover routing policy is specifically designed for active-passive architectures. It routes all traffic to the designated primary endpoint and automatically switches to the secondary endpoint when Route 53 health checks detect that the primary is unhealthy, then returns traffic to the primary once it recovers, all without manual intervention. Weighted routing with a 100-to-0 distribution sends all traffic to US East 1 under normal conditions, but a record with zero weight never receives traffic regardless of the primary's health status. It does not activate automatically when the primary fails. Latency-based routing selects the lowest latency endpoint for each user, which distributes traffic across both regions simultaneously under normal conditions, rather than maintaining a pure primary-secondary architecture. Geolocation routing directs requests based on the geographic origin of DNS queries, not on endpoint health status, so it cannot automatically redirect traffic when a regional deployment becomes unavailable. Let's slow down on this one. Route 53 has 4 routing policies and the differences really matter. Imagine your main server room catches fire. You need traffic to switch to your backup site automatically. No phone calls, no manual changes. That's what Route 53 failover routing does. You designate US East 1 as primary. EU Central 1 sits on standby as secondary. Route 53 polls the primary every 30 seconds. Fail 3 checks in a row. Route 53 reroutes all traffic to EU Central 1 automatically. When US East 1 recovers, traffic returns to primary. Now, option B is the classic trap. A weight of 0 means EU Central 1 is permanently excluded, even if US East 1 dies. Weight 0 is not standby. It is excluded. Only failover routing activates the secondary when the primary is down. 3 takeaways from this session. First, NACLs are the only subnet control that can explicitly deny by source IP. Security groups can only allow. Second, AWS Artifact is the single portal for both downloadable compliance reports and legal agreements like the HIPAA bar. Third, compute savings plans and convertible REIS cross-instance families. EC2 instance savings plans and standard REIS do not. Artifact appeared twice, the people perspective appeared twice, NaCl's appeared twice, all worded differently. That's exactly what the exam does. Master the why behind each service, and the wording can't trip you. Before you go, do me a favor, subscribe so you catch the next set and so these reach more learners studying the same exam. Drop your score and any tricky question in the comments. Want me to build a series on a different certification? Name it below, and tell me how the speed and style land for you.